In R.2, we're going to move on to operations on real numbers. So we're going to add, subtract, multiply, and divide real numbers as well. Well, yeah, that encompasses it, real numbers. And so we're going to be doing, some integers, some fractions, some decimals, and so on and so forth. So the first thing we're going to look at is simply adding real numbers. So adding, what you really want to look at is, are the signs the same or are they different? So do you have two positive numbers or two negative numbers? So for example here, if you're adding 2 plus 7, they're both positive numbers, so they're going to get bigger. So you're going to add the numbers together to get 9. Well, same thing here. If you have -2 and you're adding to it -7, they're both negative. So, if you thought of having 2 negatives and now 7 more negatives, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you have altogether 9 negatives. And so even though they're negative, you're still adding them together, and the answer is just negative. When the signs are different, however, it's opposite. So instead of adding, we actually subtract them. So even though the operation between them is adding, you have -8 and +3. The -8 is bigger, so you know that your answer is going to be negative. So then I go 8 minus 3 is 5. And then because the bigger number was negative, I say it's -5. Now, that's just one way of thinking of it. You can really do this however you want. Some people go, oh, I have 8 negatives, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 3 positives, and they're like, okay, gone, gone, gone. I'm left with 5 negatives. Some people say, oh, I'm on a temperature scale. It's -8 outside. I'm going to go up 3 degrees, 1, 2, 3, and now I'm at -5. There's so many ways of adding numbers together. I actually find it quite fascinating that you gotta have to kind of roll with what you know. But sometimes it's nice to see something new and be like, oh, that's so much quicker. So for example, when I look here, I'm like, okay, I'm adding two numbers together. They're different signs. So 8 minus 3 is 5. Bigger number's positive, so this time the answer is +5. So what I want you to do is potentially just try these. So I've got 4 examples here. I would love for you just to give these a go. So I want you to add these numbers together. Try to do it without a calculator. The only one I'd say, hey, go for it, use a calculator, would be this last one. So I'm hoping you're pausing the video and then unpause when you get back, and I'll give you the right answers. So for this one, we've got 5 and I'm adding -14, so my answer is going to be -9. For this one, they're both negative, so I'm going to add them together and get -17. For this one, I have 5 and a -2. I add them together, I get +3. And then this one, I've got -8.2 and +15.3. I'm always afraid of making a mistake in a video. I think it's 7.1, but let's just check. So -8.2 plus 15.3 equals 7.1. All right. Now, when you're subtracting numbers, if you found this super easy, do subtraction like addition. In other words, if they tell you to do 6 minus 4, you can do it as 6 plus -4, right? It doesn't matter if you actually think of a subtraction or if you think of it as, hey, I've got a 6 and I've got a -4. When I add them together, I come up with 2. So here's 4 examples that I've done for you. So if you've got 3 minus 7, it's like taking 3 plus -7, which would give me -4. If I have -2 minus -6, this one's different. So when you take away negative, it means that you actually add. So the way I think of it is minus minus makes a plus sign. So if you have a negative times a negative, it's positive. That's another way of thinking of it. But in reality here, we've got -2 plus 6, which gives me 4. Same thing here, I would take my 2 negatives and make it an addition. -8 plus 3 is -5. And then here I've got -4 plus a -9, or -4 take away 9, so I'm going in a negative direction, and I've got -13. So I've got just 3 questions here, give them a go. So -5 minus -13 means I'm doing -5 plus 13, which is going to give me 8. This one I have -3 plus -4, which is going to give me -7. And for this one I have 6 and I'm adding -8, which is going to give me -2. Now some of you out there in internet land are being like, do I have to show this step? Like I just did 6 minus 8 and I got -2. Awesome, right? Steps that you have to show, like what you should always do is on a test is look what a question's worth. These would be worth 1 mark. And so you don't have to show me any work for it. Now, if you get more than one a multiple or addition or subtraction in a question, just work in order from left to right. So if we've got 15 plus -3, so I'm going to do 15 plus 3. I could do it plus -5. I've never done this before. Plus -12. That way you can now, there's a part of this review chapter that we've taken out. There's a thing called the commutative property of addition, which means that I can move these numbers around. So if I wanted to do 15 minus 5, you can do that first, and then you can add 3, and then you can add negative 12. It's just important that the sign goes with the number. There's another property called the associative property of addition, which is that I could add these two, I could add these two, and then I could add the answers together. So even though I've said left to right, if it's all addition, you can actually do it in whatever order you want, whatever kind of makes the most sense in your brain for getting the answer. So for me, I would probably, I don't know what I would do. Yeah, maybe I would do that. So I do 15 plus 3 is 18. Plus, add my two negatives together, I've got negative 17, and then 18 minus 17 is 1, right? Which would give me the same answer as if I went 15 plus 3 is 18, minus 5 is 13, minus 12 is 1, right? It does not matter with addition. You don't actually have to work left to right. What matters is if you throw a multiplication in there, so order of operations, which we'll be doing in R.2, that's when it starts mattering. So pause the video, give this one a go. I'm going to go that I have negative 10, adding negative 6, adding 12, and I'm adding 9. So in my head, I'm going negative 16 plus 21, and then I'm left with 5. But again, you can show your work in any way that makes sense to you, as long as you are getting 5 as an answer. And I have to say, it is also good to practice using a calculator. I love mental math. I strongly support mental math, but at some point, people always have to go to a calculator for a certain question. And so making sure on a question like this that you can plug it in. Like, what if you had to do 15 take away negative 3 minus 5 minus 12? Do you get 1? You know, check those things now to make sure you're using your calculator correctly. All right, go and practice.